Go. And stop. There's a little rocket ship that comes up on the dashboard when you do a launch. I can see why. You'll see. This is the MG Cyberster, the first all-electric convertible sports car on the market, and look at it. It looks gorgeous and it has the performance on its side to make it turn heads. But is it fun and is it nice to live with? Well, I'll tell you whether I think it is in this review, and I'll also tell you the best alternatives to this convertible car. So if you haven't already, please subscribe and ring that bell, and let's get to it. The Cyberster is available in just one trim line at launch, and it costs $115,000 before on-road costs, so it is not a cheap vehicle, but it does have a comprehensive list of standard technology and equipment fitted. Things like 20-inch wheels, you've also got LED headlights, LED daytime running lights, LED tail lights as well, and on the inside you've got a leather steering wheel. There's also fake leather and Alcantara trim on the interior. There's electric seat adjustment with heating and lumbar adjust as well, and a bunch of different screens which I'll talk you through when we get into the cabin as well. So on paper it does seem to have a decent amount of standard equipment, and it also has a really impressive launch control system. But what else could you consider if you've got more than 100 grand of budget to play with and you want a convertible and an electric car? Well, I've got some interesting alternatives. At this point in time, there are no electric convertibles that compete with the MG Cyberster. There will be soon. The Porsche 718 Boxster will be replaced by a fully electric model shortly, and hopefully they'll continue to do a petrol one as well. But the electric version seems to be pretty promising in terms of what that vehicle will offer, but it is not here yet. And if you're looking for a car right now and you want it to be electric and you want it to be convertible, I've got an interesting option that I think you should consider. I reckon you should go and buy an MG X-Power, which has just a little bit less power and torque than this. And I reckon then you should buy a Mazda MX-5 as your second car, because I think that you will find that you are going to get more out of those two vehicles than you will out of one of these. And in fact, you'll still have money left over, which might be a consideration for you. The Cyberster is 115 grand. You're looking at about 50 grand for a nice MX-5 and 60 grand for the MG X-Power. So does that make sense to you, or would you just go for a more conventional convertible model? There is the Porsche 718 Boxster. It's $130,000 plus. It is petrol powered and it's got a fantastic 4-cylinder as well, and it could be a better choice than this if you do want a sporty experience and you do want petrol power still. But you let me know what you think in the comments section below. Do you have a better two-car garage alternative instead of just spending $115 on this? It's hard to argue that this isn't a good looking car. It is glorious in terms of its design. I think it's one of the most pretty new cars on the market from the front at least. I really like the silhouette of this vehicle as well. Convertible obviously, so it looks fantastic with the roof down. I'll put the roof up in a sec to show you, but first I want to show you this little button on the key here. So look at those. Those are your door controls. Just have a look at this. Yep, there we go. And on the driver's side as well, you do have these. They're sort of scissor doors, I guess you'd say. Sex spec era, perhaps. Yes, it's a bit like the Fast Fours years, all those decades ago. And I think you just need to be mindful though that these doors, as cool as they might look, they might not necessarily be all that practical, because have a look at this. I'm 6 foot tall, and yes, if you're in a tight parking spot, that could be a serious issue. You need to be mindful of that. And also when it comes to closing those doors, that is not a button to close the door. That is a sensor that will stop the door from opening into something in theory. But if you do need to close the doors, there's a button right there to do so. And yes, just have a look at this rear design. I'll put the roof up in a sec, as I said, but it is stunning. I'm not so sure about these arrow blinkers, but yeah, you can have your say in the comments section below about whether you like them. All right, I'm going to put the lid up. Unfortunately, you have to wait for the doors to open, and then hopefully the roof will close pretty quickly. Let's just see. Okay, so it's closed, and let me just close the door. Now let's have another look, shall we? If this wasn't inspired by an Aston Martin design, I'll be buggered. It is a very, very Aston-like interpretation of what an MG should look like. I think it's gorgeous. Honestly, it is a really stunning piece of design. I even really like this red roof finish on this particular model and this sandy paint color, which, yeah, does kind of remind me of a 70 series Land Cruiser. If that's cool or not, you tell me. All right, let's check out the boot space and see what we are working with. There's a button there to open the boot. It doesn't automatically open all the way up, but you can see for yourself there that does have a decent amount of space. I'll put the cargo volume on your screen. You'll obviously need soft luggage in order to make the best advantage of this boot space, and as you can see, it's not too bad. There's also some little cargo nooks on the side with a 12-volt port on that side. There is a light in here, which is good, and another cargo section over there. This is your charging cable bag. You do get a cable included at purchase, and underneath here there's a tire repair kit. So unsurprisingly, no spare for a vehicle like this. You also get a safety triangle there as well. But look, what do you think? Could you make that boot space work for your needs? It's certainly better than an MX-5. All right, let's start off with the door open. Honestly, the thing that is going to take the most getting used to in this vehicle is how to close the doors and open them. You have to use these buttons down here. As you can see, it will close for you when you do that. And when you want to get out of the car, you have to remember that there are no door pulls here. You have to use those buttons again. Otherwise, there's the little button down there that you can trigger if you can reach it. But yes, it is something you want to keep in mind when it comes to the usability and practicality of this car. And there's obviously some other things that you can probably see right now that aren't fantastic about the driving position of this vehicle, because the steering wheel eats into a lot of your view. Like, you don't have a full view of that screen or a full view of that screen right there. Another consideration I would say is the headspace. So I've got this seat in the lowest position. I'm only 6 foot, and you can see I'm almost brushing the ceiling here. So if you're a big unit, especially a really tall person, you might find that it is maybe not the most comfortable experience, but hey, you could always drop the roof and drive topless all the time, I guess, couldn't you? Now, let's get back to the design of this interior. And yes, it is a screen festival. So you've got one screen over here with a fair bit of information on it. Let me just show you what it's got. So you've got your charging at a glance. It's also got connected services. It's not connected for this particular car right now, but you can get a weather update. There's other things there, like your data for your MG service and roadside assist, so forth. There's so many things on this little screen that really I've just kept it in the energy consumption design here. It does give you a pretty good glance at what you need to see, but as you can tell, it does show up fingerprints really, really easily as well. Now, this driver info screen in front of me is, well, also pretty complex in terms of the menus and controls, but you can see at a glance that you've got the stuff that you need to know, your speed, and on the side here, that's your regen driving mode. You adjust that using the KERS paddle on this one, so kinetic energy recovery system. And then you've also got a drive mode toggle on that paddle there. So if you use that, you'll go up through the drive modes: comfort, sport, and custom are the three that are available there. And then there's the super sport button there, which is the one you press if you want everything to feel blurry. But look, it is a pretty decent array of information on this screen. You can jump through some of the menus here: tire pressure, radio, that sort of stuff. And if you've got nav input, then you can basically see the directions on the screen there as well. And over on this screen is your media controls. Yes, you have to plug in for Apple CarPlay, which is mind-blowing for a car with 4 screens in it. We'll get to the 4th one in a sec, but that's just the way it is right now for this vehicle. It should be wireless in my opinion. It just seems really silly that it's not. There's other menus here, including your navigation screen, and just to give you another glance at that, yes, you can't really see the navigation instructions. That's why you need that one to be working if you're using nav. There's also media controls there, as you would expect. You can connect to Android Auto as well, and there's a phone setup if you're on Bluetooth. So this panel here, now that does give you some control over the controls that you need to control, like your temperature and your fan speed, your demisters and so forth, but look how glary it is. It's really hard to see at a glance. Like, that's with the standard view from where I'm sitting. That is pretty terrible in honesty. Then there's also a 360-degree camera button, and look where the camera comes up, right where it probably shouldn't. It should be in the middle, I reckon. Maybe there's a reason that it's not. But then again, you can adjust some elements of your view here if you can. Oh, there's a car going past. If you can get it to work, yes, you do have side views. You've got a top view. You can make the vehicle transparent if you want to. Guidelines, distant markers. So there's a few different things on that screen that you can play with. Just excuse the bag and stuff outside there. But yeah, you can see it does have a reasonable usability to the camera system. It's just that if you're reversing or trying to park, you're going to be constantly sort of looking over the edge of the steering wheel trying to see where you're going. Yeah, some compromises when it comes to the screens, no doubt. Now, this is the fourth screen, 4 of them. Yes, this one is another screen for more controls, including your drive mode. So you can go through your modes there and adjust things if you want to. You can put it into launch mode. There's also a seating adjustment system there. So you've got lumbar adjust. You can turn on the driver's seat easy entry if you want to, which basically will just adjust the seat for you when you're trying to get in the car. And also, you do have these controls on the doors for your seats. But as I said, the issue for some will be that you can't really get the seat low enough. And it's just strange to not have lumbar adjust on that trigger section anyway. There's also memory settings for the seats. Over here again, we've got driving settings that you can adjust, like I said, seating as well. You've got lights as well, and you can adjust this so you can look through a bunch of different menus. MG Pilot, so that's your advanced safety technology systems. That will maybe get on your nerves, and there's some things that you might want to turn off. I think that for the most part, it is reasonably easy to get used to this screen because it's pretty easy to see, and there are some favorites buttons there that you can set up so you can adjust things quickly if you want to. You've got your gear selection panel here, so park is a button, reverse you trigger up, drive you trigger up. Now practicality wise, you've got some cup holders here, and they can also raise up, as you can see, so you can make them not cup holders for whatever reason. There's a little slot here where you can put your phone. There's a covered center console bin with USB ports. These seats, they look fantastic. The trim is cool. I like the grab handle for scaredy cats. And in the doors, there's even a little storage thing as well, and a glove box too, which is nice to see. In front of your left knee, there is another little storage area as well. It's not necessarily like others where it sort of loads through and you've got more space, and there's no wireless phone charger either. Oh, and speaking of things that are missing, it doesn't have an auto dimming rear vision mirror, which again, this is a very high-tech car. To miss out on something as simple as an auto dimming mirror, there's some really weird spec stuff with this vehicle, I've got to say. There's one more thing I just want to show you. Behind the seats, you do have a fair amount of storage. As you can see, you can fit some backpacks in there if you need to. And this right here is another little storage hook, which is handy. And these, if you're wondering, are your emergency trigger switches for the doors. So if you need to get out that way, you can. So look, you tell me what you think. I think it's a mixed bag in terms of the spec on offer in here. But I mean, if you're never going to use those screens, you might be really happy with it. Oh, the door's opening for me. Cool. Under the bonnet of the Cyberster, there's not a whole lot to see apart from these little peaky little hidey holes where you can see some of the suspension stuff, which is actually pretty cool, I have to say. But look, under there, just plastic shielding, but the power and torque outputs for this vehicle are phenomenal. 375 kilowatts and 725 Newton meters. Those are the combined outputs. Yes, it's all-wheel drive, and that means that it does 0 to 100 in a claimed 3.2 seconds. In a few segments time, we're going to see if we can beat that number. And the top speed is 208 k's an hour. I won't be aiming to beat that one though. All right, let's talk about range and charging. The Cyberster we get in Australia comes as standard with a 77 kilowatt hour NMC battery pack, or ternary lithium ion battery, and it also has 443 kilometers of WLTP rated driving range. So your charge port is on the passenger side, just behind the door. It pops open nice and easily. Yes, you've got AC at a maximum rate of 11 kilowatts, so you will need 3-phase power at home in order to achieve the maximum charging rate on AC, and the time for that will be on your screen now. And of course, there's also DC charging. It's not the fastest DC charging vehicle on the market, but 144 kilowatts DC. So you should be able to top up pretty quickly from a rapid charger. You'll see the estimated time on your screen now. Do you think those numbers are good enough? And hey, do you have enough time to wait and charge a vehicle like this? If you're in a hurry, that's why you buy a sports car, right? So, foot on the brake, we're in super sport, foot down, 3, 2, 1, go! And stop! Wow! There's a little rocket ship that comes up on the dashboard when you do a launch. I can see why. All right, so let's do this thing in the Cyberster on a twisty road, which you might know if you've been south of Sydney before. And whoa, bloody hell, it is fast. It is fast, there's no doubt about that. Obviously, it should be fast with the power outputs that it's got, but far out, it really does find the horizon fast. And yeah, the brakes, I'm not loving those straight off the bat in terms of the dynamic driving. Regen braking does affect the brake pedal feel, so you have to keep that in mind. But in this instance, it's just not quite as honest feeling as I might like. But hey, it's also a pretty interesting drive experience more generally, because it is tight and solid feeling, and it doesn't have too much of that scuttle shake which you get from some convertibles, because no rigidity over the roof. But it does sew these corners together nicely. The steering is a highlight, I have to say. It is very nicely sorted in terms of the weighting and the responsiveness and the directness. And the big issue I have with it is over bumps, the body control just isn't quite right. It feels heavy, and I guess that's because it's a very heavy vehicle. For a sports car, it's, yeah, obese, I would say, for a sports car, but obviously that's the price you have to pay if you want battery technology and electric power at this point in time. So body control, I don't think it's a sports car-like drive experience. It's nowhere near what you're getting in a Porsche or something like that, but it is still pretty good in terms of the drive experience more generally. And if you are a Sunday driver rather than a racetrack wannabe, I think you'll be okay with it. It's just like, as you can see, I'm sort of bobbing around quite a bit, and that doesn't instill the most confidence for a vehicle like this. Okay, we'll just push through these little twisties. Oh man, it is so ridiculously fast, but the slowing is not as good as the going. Yes, yeah, I just want more brake pedal feel. I want a bit more bite. But yeah, I mean, really depends what you're after. Like I said, if it's a Sunday car and you might only go for a spirited drive every now and then, perfectly fine for that sort of application, I'd say. But if you are the sort of person who wants a sporty sports car, maybe not, in my opinion anyway. Just for the money and the compromise that's built into it with it being an EV and all this weight, yeah, those considerations might factor into your decision-making process. But it does have some of the right ingredients for dynamic driving like this. It's got Pirelli P0 tires. They are exceptionally grippy, and it does hang on nicely. I mean, like I said, the weight is a consideration. It is a heavy vehicle, and it does feel pretty heavy on the road, but you can slice and dice corners better than you might expect for a vehicle that weighs this much. And I think that, you know, it is fun. It's definitely fun. I'm not having the most fun that I could have without a top on, but I think that, just the body control really lets it down. It just isn't as well sorted as it could be in terms of the secure feeling on the road. You just don't have that security that you get in some other sports cars. Like even in a Mazda MX-5, leaves this thing for dead when it comes to that really impressive, secure feeling on the road. The physics of the weight of this vehicle are playing against it in terms of the sports car factor, but yes, a tourer, it would be an absolute divine touring vehicle for Sunday drives, weekend tours, whatever you might do. Yeah, that could work for you, I would say. On your screen, you'll see the official energy consumption figure for this vehicle. That is a little high because it is a dual motor EV with plenty of power and torque. And just like a petrol or diesel car, the lower the number, the better. But even so, I think it's relatively good considering the amount of torque and power this vehicle does have. And if you're wondering what I've seen during my very short drive of this car, just a single day with it, you'll see it on your screen now. Tell me what you think about that. Is that okay? I'd like to know your thoughts. This car hasn't got an ANCAP or Euro NCAP rating, and I wouldn't expect that it will get one either because crash testing is expensive and these cars are expensive, but it does have a full array of active safety technology and equipment, things like autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist and junction detection. There's a lane keeping system, an emergency lane keep system, which is a bit annoying. There's speed sign recognition, again, can be frustrating, and that driver monitoring camera. Yeah, not to my tastes either, but it's got all that stuff, and if you're the sort of person who likes the safety technology being on your side, I'm sure you'll be okay with it, but just annoys me a bit, some of it. There's a blind spot detection system, there's rear cross traffic alert as well, front and rear parking sensors and cameras around the car as well to help you see when you're parking, which is good. And when it comes to airbags, you've got dual front and front side airbag protection in this model. It is only a small cabin, so it doesn't have as many airbags as some other cars. MG in Australia offers a 10-year, 250,000 kilometre warranty. That is the best you can get in this market. And the great news is it also applies to the battery pack for this vehicle. So that's great peace of mind before you even sign on the line. And there's also a cut price servicing plan for this model. 12 months and 25,000 Ks are your service intervals. That's a little bit more needy than some of the other EVs in the MG range. And the service costs are quite high as well. You'll see the average over the cut price servicing plan on your screen now. Yep, that's pretty pricey, I've got to say, for an EV, but at least you also get 10 years of roadside assistance included when you buy a brand new MG. So it stacks up pretty well on the ownership front, doesn't it? This is the only convertible two-door sports car that you can buy that's fully electric right now, but is it the right car? Well, if you are okay with a vehicle that isn't maybe necessarily the sharpest dynamic tool, it could be. Like if you're going to buy this car as a weekend driver, hey, I reckon it could be a fantastic choice for you. It's got plenty of power, plenty of tech, and it's very comfy as well. But for someone who is looking for a more sharpened tool, I don't think it's necessarily the perfect vehicle. But tell me what you think about it in the comments section below. And hey, if you found this or any other review of mine to be helpful, you can always leave a contribution using the super thanks button down below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It does help a lot. Thanks for watching. My name's Matt. This channel's called The Right Car. See you later.